It's the crapped out ski instructor back again, stealing another idea from skiing to see if it'll help me learn how to ride a mountain sled. Here's a quick test for you. Watch the following two clips and tell me the difference between them. Yes, so the only real difference is about 400 blips. Today's idea, stolen from skiing, is about doing less of one movement so you can get better at another. And I'm going to use blipping, throttle blipping, as an example. And as usual, if it turns out no one cares, I'll go back to making videos on how to train monkeys. As a ski instructor, I used to think of skiing as a kind of recipe where the ingredients stay the same but the proportions always change. One moment you might need a lot of pressure and not much steering, and the next you might need more steering but less edge, and so on. Same ingredients, different way of putting it together. I've been trying the same recipe approach as I learned to ride a sled in the mountains. Take away this, see what happens to that. Dial down one thing, dial up something else. And one thing I found really interesting to take away, at least temporarily, is blipping. Oh man, blipping. I totally get that blipping's a fundamental part of riding. I don't see any great mountain riders out there setting their throttles at a fixed RPM like they're driving a tractor. I know you need blipping to get on edge, set the track in snow, modify your line, work against your brake, adjust the position of the sled, a million things, but still, we all know those riders who just blip the crap out of everything, all the time. Uphill, downhill, on the trail, in the car park, it's just stupid. I'm pretty sure they've never really thought about it. So what I wanted to find out is what happens if you just don't blip. The first blipping experiment I tried was just riding up a section of forest road, once with blipping and once without. Timing wise, the runs were identical, but for the rider they felt completely different. I know I was overdoing the blipping for the sake of it, but when I took away the blipping, after doing heaps of it, I was instantly more aware of making a definite weight change from one running board to the other. It made everything more predictable and balanced, and it felt like I could take a smoother carved line up the track. When you take away a movement like this, it really increases your awareness of the other things going on. I found that when I'm paying attention, I can feel and even hear each ski when it touches down on the snow. But when I'm blipping away like a crazy bastard, I don't get any of that. It's the same skiing. If you're flailing away with your arms, there's going to be a whole lot of other stuff going on you don't even notice. I started trying this all over the place, seeing what happens if I blip more or blip less, or I don't know, what was the right amount. I think the right amount is just enough to make the sled do what you need it to do. But if you've got a reflex blipping habit everywhere, all the time, seems likely that you're missing out on options to control the sled.
Which means the sled is controlling you.
That's bad.
This run was over in Niigata, in a place that often has too much snow to ride. It wasn't steep or technical, but it was kind of an interesting side hill with trees and dipping into gullies and a lot of temptation to just blip the crap out of it in the spring hero snow. I was trying to ride it super smoothly on the throttle, looking way ahead, or trying to look way ahead, and giving it just enough to keep the sled on edge over the terrain changes. Riding like this definitely made it smoother with less wasted energy, and it just seemed like there was more time to do everything. It doesn't sound as exciting, but just like in skiing, when you crank up the speed and the difficulty, the stuff you practice slowly starts to work even when you're going fast. The more I've played around with blipping, the more I've realized it affects everything. If you counter steered and blip, it'll straighten you out and tip you upright, unless you compensate with more counter steering and get inside the turn more. Lean into it more, with your hips inside. And blipping can also make you porpoise, which again is fine if that's what you want to do, but remember, constantly blipping could be masking some other control options you didn't even know you had. Here I've totally exaggerated blips on a sled to leave deep troughs and exaggerate what the throttle is doing. And you can see the sled moving in and out of the snow. And then here's a clean turn on a smoother throttle. But even little blips are going to have a subtle effect because each blip transfers weight forward and back, which might be helpful, but it might not. Another time that made me really think about blipping and throttle control is riding shallow, wind-blown powder on a breakable crust where blipping the throttle was driving the ski under and over the crust, which was grabbing the ski and making it really hard to hold a turn. But by smoothing out my throttle, I was able to kind of set the trim like you do on a powerboat and ride the turns cleanly using the other parts of the recipe, the counter steer and weight transfer, and looking where I want to go. Well, that's enough banging on about blipping, I think. What I've been talking about is just one example of dialing down one movement so you can dial up another. In skiing there are tons of ways you can fiddle with the recipe, taking stuff away and adding it in. So on my snowmobile I'm going to keep messing around with this idea and try adjusting the dial on other movements, because I figure that the same as in skiing, whatever I do on the sled I should be doing it for a good reason, not just because I hadn't thought about it and it became a habit, probably a bad habit. By the way, if you're thinking that maybe super basic drills are a waste of time because you can already ride the mountain, that skier we've just been watching do basic drills on a learner slope in Colorado is Michaela Schifrin, and you might have heard of her because she's probably the greatest skier the world's ever seen, and she does basic drills, taking movements away and adding them back in over and over. Maybe we can learn from her. That's it. Next vid, if I haven't been eaten by a monkey, I'm going to think some ski instructor thoughts about looking where you want to go. Or I might have a go at asymmetry, because just like skiing, it annoys the hell out of me when I can do something one way, but not the other. Hands on the top and feet down below.
No.
That's your foot rail, not your... That's your foot rail. Your hands are up above. Listen to me. Look, oi, listen.
No.
That is completely wrong. God, we've done this 100 times. Fucking moron.